Welcome to SmithWeekly Discussions, an occasional program for our members of SmithWeekly Research. Please note this program is a private discussion and everything contained herein is for entertainment and educational purposes only. With that, we hope you're in a comfortable position, along with your favorite beverage, to enjoy the discussion. We remind our audience to examine our show notes attached to each of our shows to better understand how our program functions. Before we get into our discussion, we want to say thanks for questions coming from our audience at SmithWeekly, including Brent S., Andy J., Luke A., and Michael G. On the program today, we have a returning guest. Mr. Niko Cacos is back to update. Niko is the president and CEO of Blue Sky Uranium, an Argentina-focused uranium project developer and exploration company that has a number of various stage uranium projects in southern Argentina, including the Amarillo Grande project, which hosts the Ivana conventional uranium-vanadium deposit that the company has a joint venture interest in and is advancing to feasibility study with Spanish partner COAM. Blue Sky Uranium is listed on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol BSK, as well as on the US OTC markets under the symbol BKUCF. Niko, welcome back to SmithWeekly Discussions.
Andrew, always a pleasure to be back talking to you. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise, Niko. It's been a while since we've had you on the program. And I guess with that, of course, we have new audience. But as usual here, I'd like to get your thoughts on the uranium market so far during 2025, as far as how you see things lining up. And of course, some of the variations in sentiment. What's your thoughts?
Well, the sentiment, just when you think it's fantastic, it gets better. Has been my observation over the course of the last couple of years. You keep reading in the mainstream press about the even tech companies, the AI companies that are out there purchasing power or from that's generated by nuclear power, or even outright like Microsoft, their purchase a Long Island nuclear power plant in order to provide stable, secure, safe and carbon-free power for their computers. And on top of that, I keep reading about new build outs of nuclear power facilities just on a global basis right now. That there seems to be a real profound shift at the grassroots level, whereby nuclear power is now widely accepted as a safe alternative to other sources of generating electricity. But beyond that, it's carbon free. It's also the most efficient and best way to provide stable base power. So the demand for nuclear power continues to increase, and therefore the demand for uranium continues to climb. And that organic demand base is providing an unprecedented demand for uranium, and which I see, and many of the analyst reports that I read see lasting over the course of the next few decades here, at least.
It's interesting. It's been a very slow slog, if you will, through the sector over the years. But certainly, I think we can say that the pace is definitely quickening. And now, with all of the promises out there, plus the build outs, and there's a lot of hot air within those promises. But if we can just get a fraction, I think this is going to be huge windfall on an S&D basis for this industry. And of course, the big shortfalls are on the supply side with not only good projects and clean production, but also difficulties on talent and staffing as well. So very good stuff here. And of course, I think the years ahead here, we've got some good progress coming. But I always like to caution investors, be prepared to take your time because certainly these markets do take time to play out properly. The uranium sector is no exclusion to that thinking as well. But Niko, as I said before, it's been a while since the company's been on the program, but there's been a number of news items since we last talked. First, key item here, the company announced and closed a joint venture agreement with COAM to advance the Ivana deposit to feasibility and eventual construction of the project. Cover off that transaction for us.
Yeah, I mean, the Ivana, for those who may not be aware, is, Blue Sky, we're focused on building out, discovering uranium deposits in Argentina specifically. Argentina, for those who may not know, is a long history in the nuclear field. It goes back into since the 1950s, so it's a great place in which to operate. And our flagship deposit, the Ivana deposit, it's got just over 17 million pounds of uranium and 8.1 million pounds of vanadium. In the first quarter of this year, we closed a deal with Corporación Americas, which we abbreviate as COAM, whereby they can earn up to 80% of the project, but they're responsible for not just completing the feasibility study for the deposit, but also the complete build out of the project into all the way through into production. So that's a deal valued at approximately $200 million, and it represents a tremendous opportunity for Blue Sky and our shareholders, because we don't have to raise any more money in order to fund this, to move this forward. So it's in very capable hands, and COAM, for those who may not know, is one of the most important business groups in Argentina. They are involved in a multitude of diverse businesses, and they have a reputation of moving things faster and more efficient, and always achieving their targets under budget. So, we're very excited to have this well qualified group come in here and take over this project and help us move it forward.
With that group, just talk a little bit about a little more detail about some of the businesses they're involved in, and specifically the mining business areas that they're involved in with that as well. Any additional insights on that front?
The group is family owned, the Arnakian group. I like to compare them. They're kind of like the Carlos Slim of Argentina. For those who know, Carlos Slim is in Mexico. They are involved in a diverse group of businesses. They own airports around the world. They own pharmaceuticals. They're into the microchips, oil and gas exploration, and gold mining, and now this is their first foray into uranium mining. So they're a very, very capable group. In fact, the president of Argentina, Javier Milei, he used to work for this organization before he became president of the country. So that speaks to the depth of connections and contacts that this group has throughout the country of Argentina.
Appreciate the additional insights on that. And with this here, staying on Ivana, what do you see there on schedule? When would you expect to see feasibility study completed? I know that's a little ways out here. There's more work to be done on site, but feasibility study timing, with a positive decision to proceed with construction of the project post feasibility study, talk a little bit about that timing on permitting, and then when you would expect initial production for the project. We know that that's fairly speculative at this point, but give us a rough schedule of those key items.
Yeah, it is speculative at this point, but nonetheless, though, our internal objectives, which I can talk about, the contract stipulated that they need to complete a feasibility study within 3 years. And after that, they've got another period of 3 years to build out and construct the project into production. But if you see even the announcement that we made today, the COAM is keen to move as quickly as possible. They have doubled the budget, the drilling budget, the drilling which began today actually, for the first year. And the objective here is, instead of taking 3 years, see if we can do this in 12 or 18 months to get to the feasibility study stage. So we're really, really trying to fast track this so that we can get them, the more up to date and more precise economic figures, such that a proper decision for development and ultimate production can be made. And then after that, the actual construct, and it can take a couple of years beyond that in order to further build it out. The neat thing about it is the fact that in Argentina is a nuclear country, the protocol and the regulations which govern what steps need to be taken to put a uranium project into production are already spelled out. And the process is not much different than if you wanted to put into production a copper project or a gold project. So overall, we're on an excellent fast track here. In the next 3 or 4 years, it's very possible that we could be in a position where we are in production. Again, that's speculative, but that highlights our objective of how quickly we want to move forward here.
Just two follow-ups, just specifically on that, on the timing. First, what do you see as far as the potential permit timing? And then I suspect, given the production profile of this project and the simplicity of the project overall compared to more complex uranium projects. Would it be safe to say that this would happen certainly before end of decade? Is that your thinking?
Oh yeah, that is definitely within our objective here. The permitting, in terms of permitting, one of the reason it'll take at least a year to complete the feasibility study is because there's environmental permits which stipulate that you need to monitor the environment throughout all 4 seasons. So it takes a year. You can't do it faster than that. But beyond that, though, any other permits that are required can be done fairly quickly. There's community relations and social license and whatnot. Our project is situated in a very, very sparsely situated area in Patagonia, there in southern Argentina. There's a small town nearby where we have been very present. We have excellent relationship. All our workers come from this town. There's also a nearby university, the University of Rio Negro, which has a program for uranium geology. And we often provide these geologists with practicums to come onto our project and to apply the knowledge onto, the uranium project that's nearby here at the Ivana. And often we come to employ them. So we try to maintain and do our best to maintain an open book and excellent relationships, and all of these steps will definitely facilitate the process of obtaining all the necessary permits. Beyond that, other permitting that's required at the provincial level or federal level, well, we're always in touch, and the government authorities are all aware of what we're doing and very supportive of what we're doing. So we remain very optimistic that this will be a very smooth process going forward.
And Niko, remind the audience here of the economics of the project based on the PEA. We'll use those numbers. Give us what that post-tax NPV is on that. And then also with that, as you guys progress into feasibility over the next 12 to 18 months, what areas would you expect to see improvement between the PEA and that FS?
Well, the PEA that we published in the first quarter of last year, 2024, it showed that the NPV of the project was at about just over $220 million. But that wasn't so much the number that I was looking at. When we published that PEA, we were really looking to see, well, what would it cost to put that deposit into production? And those pre-production capex costs came in at just under 160 million. And the reason that number was important because there are many uranium exploration targets which surround the existing deposit, all within a 30-kilometer range, that if any one of those were to prove as an additional positive deposit, the capex wouldn't change very much. So it would improve the value of the project dramatically. And then beyond that, the way that it's been deposited, it's superficial from the first 15 meters of the surface. We were also curious, what would it cost to produce a single pound of uranium? And those numbers came in at under $25 per pound, whether it's just cash costs, or even if you include the all-in sustaining costs. So under $25 production cost for uranium is very, very low. In fact, it's within the lowest quartile of producers in the world. So this is a very, very competitive project, situated in an area where there's lots of targets to make additional deposits. It certainly has all the earmarkings of becoming a real world-class deposit in terms of size, and definitely in terms of potential production costs. Now, the second part of your question, Andrew, was how would the numbers of the feasibility study change the PEA numbers? Well, it's kind of tough to say without actually doing the study. But for one thing, the margin of error here would become the feasibility study numbers would be much more precise. They would be better costed out. There's, in many cases in the PEA, with just estimates are made based on just international prices for machinery or production costs. Things in Argentina tend to be cheaper than elsewhere. And it's possible that the production costs and whatnot may become even more efficient than what the PEA is published. And beyond that, as the price of uranium here continues to move up, we may end up seeing different economic numbers as well, much more positive as well. Not that these are not positive; these are excellent numbers that we put out.
Good information here, and certainly the potential for additional success on discovery there nearby to tie into the existing planned production profile at Ivana would be definitely a nice value add here. And I know you guys are working on testing some of that here this year to maybe determine some additional resources and other discovery that might happen here as well. So appreciate that information. Good to put a little bit of numbers around this and seeing how it would go in the current uranium environment, plus where we're headed as well. One more item on just looking more towards procurement of things with respect to the partner. Is it the intention to work closely and talk to Argentine clients about offtake or potential sale of uranium concentrate coming out of the project in the future? Would it also be fair to maybe also look globally at some of the utilities out there? And then also, would Spain be a potential high on the list to have discussions with? How do you plan to approach that, Niko?
Yeah, I mean, like I briefly mentioned at the opening of this, podcast here, that Argentina is a nuclear country, and that's a very significant point. It's one that many investors don't see, that don't are not aware of that. Argentina is active in every facet of the nuclear cycle. They've got 3 power plants currently in operation. They've got more power plants under construction and planning in the planning phases. They've got research reactors. They can enrich their own uranium. In fact, there's a pilot enrichment plant in the province, not that far away from our project ourselves. They're building out small modular reactors. It's an extremely sophisticated nuclear industry in Argentina. They just don't have production of uranium. They used to about 30 or 40 years ago, but the country ran out of money, and those uranium plants mines basically had to be shut down. So Argentina imports all their need for uranium. They buy that abroad. I believe it comes in from Kazakhstan, so there's a cost for shipping and whatnot. And this is, our project, even at the relatively early stage that it's at right now, it represents the largest and most advanced uranium project in the country. And there's a law in Argentina which stipulates that if there is domestic production of uranium, domestic nuclear power plants should be fed with this domestic supply. So we have a priority, and it'll be at international negotiated prices as well. So we can obviously undercut anybody too, even if we had to compete economically, simply because we wouldn't have to ship it from Central Asia all the way to Argentina. So our first customer is intending to be Argentina. Argentina currently imports about 700,000 pounds a year of uranium. Our PEA projects that we could be producing up to 1.5 million pounds of uranium per year, more than double what Argentina imports. I expect that Argentina will likely buy most of our production and stockpile it initially, but as we make additional discoveries and continue to move forward, I also expect we could be in a position to become net exporters of uranium to other countries, whether it be Spain or Brazil or other countries in the region there.
Moving to one of the exploration projects that you guys also picked up in 2024. The company also announced the potential for an ISR-style discovery at the Corkavo Uranium Project in Mendoza province based on historic oil and gas exploration results. Talk about this project and what the next steps are to test exploration targets there, and when you guys expect to do more work here.
Yeah, the work's still underway. It's a very exciting project right now. We made an announcement just a couple of weeks ago. We've been working on this project for some time. We acquired this project actually relatively recently. About a year ago, Mendoza, the province of Mendoza, changed its laws to permit mining, and specifically uranium mining, in certain areas within its province. That was a big, big change. For those who may have heard of Mendoza, it's probably because you're aware that's where all the great Argentine wines and Malbecs come from. So it's kind of like Napa Valley deciding that they're going to have some mining exploration in certain areas. So it was a significant government policy shift. And we latched on that right from the beginning. We saw the opportunity because in the past there has been uranium production there, and we acquired some projects, one of them being the Corkavo Project in an area that had seen a lot of oil and gas activity and lots of drilling. And the drill cores there are all publicly available information. You can get that information through the government, and we can use that and examine for the presence of uranium. And the work, this has all been desktop work, so it's been relatively inexpensive. And what we have found is that there are aqueducts running at multiple layers between 300 and 600 meters below surface that have uranium contained in them. These are ISR type projects. The in situ recovery projects are the kind of projects you find like in countries like in Kazakhstan, which produces more than half of the world's uranium. These targets tend to be quite large. So we're really quite excited about that. We've examined about half the drill core that was available to us. So we've got a little more work to continue to do, but we feel like there's a potential here for us to have a new major uranium discovery with potentially, something really quite significant, quite big. So it's very exciting.
Niko, thank you for that. Yeah, that's an interesting one there and a good project to add, and wishing you guys success there as far as doing some testing based on that historic data. It definitely looks quite interesting. And with some of the other projects, anything else that you want to mention on the other projects that you think is key that you guys will be looking at this year, or any other items on that front?
Besides the Corkavo project and the ISR, we are looking at going back to where the Ivana deposit. The Ivana deposit sits in a region that's an entire uranium district. It's huge. We only optioned off the deposit, and the district is over 145 kilometers in length and 50-kilometer wide corridor. It's enormous. The deposit is just a 5 by 5 kilometer area, so it's quite small. The whole district that we have, we own 100%. We actually had staked it many years ago, and we have done preliminary exploration there in the past, and we know that there's uranium occurrences throughout this entire district. So now that we understand the controls for yielding uranium deposits at Ivana, we can take that knowledge, apply it through this entire 145-kilometer district where we've seen additional uranium occurrences. And I think we're in a much better place to continue to do our exploration work and come up with more uranium deposits. This district, just like the districts in Kazakhstan, has the potential to make find multiple Ivanas, and truly become, like amongst the largest districts in the world with some of the lowest operating costs. So it's a very compelling exploration objective that we've got here.
On the administrative side of things, I want to talk a few things here. First, people. The company added a director as well as vice president of corporate development. Talk about what they bring to the table to support the company progress.
We added a director, Mr. Martin Burian. Mr. Burian is I've known for a very long time. He's an investment banker. He's got really an extensive experience in the mining space, and he always brings a level-headed and excellent sort of high-level perspective on how to strategically maneuver with our projects. And our vice president, Mr. Pompeo Gallardo, again, he's also a banker by training. He's an excellent businessman. He really helps a lot with negotiations and with developing strategy and whatnot. So, they're both super people. And, I like to define the success that our company has. Really, it's the people that surround me. It's the people, it's the team that make it happen. So as we grow, the demands on the existing staff grow. So, bringing these two talented gentlemen onto the company here, I think allows us to leverage our excellent projects even more.
Niko, on capital structure, I know you guys presently have a ongoing private placement that just started up, but cover off where you expect to be maybe post-placement with cash on hand, or maybe pre-placement, whatever you can say there, and then also where we are on shares outstanding at the company, and then of course some of the major shareholders.
The largest group of shareholders are management and the directors that are friends and family. We've got right now about 335 million shares out. We're doing a private placement, like you said, that's going to take us to over about 350 million shares. And between 50 and 60 million shares are controlled by management, directors, and our friends and family. So we own these shares because we believe in the project, and we believe that that's really the best way for us to be rewarded and align our interests along with the shareholders of the company. Our market cap just over $21 million. And I think as we close off this financing here, and the market continues to move up, I expect to see the value of this deal continue to become better known in the investment community, especially with institutional investors that we're focusing on right now. I think they have ultimately the ability here to change the valuation of Blue Sky. And as we continue our outreach and investor relations programs, I think we're going to be successful in that endeavor.
Any comments on cash as far as cash needs and where you guys expect to be post placement?
Post placement, we've announced an increase to bring in just over $2 million. We had just under $1 million, so we're fairly cashed up now for the work that we need for the next while. The work that we're doing at Ivana is all paid for by the Ivana joint venture partnership. In fact, they've taken on a lot of our staff to provide services for them because they recognize the good work that they've been doing. So our other projects that we're working on, unless we begin drilling on our own, we won't have a need for big cash infusions, not for a while. So I'm hoping to get a better valuation in the company before we engage in any further private placements in the future here.
Good to hear that, and we'll see how things progress here. And good to have, obviously, the joint venture partner there helping to progress this forward on their dime as well. On the community front, Niko, you guys, of course, are doing pre-permitting work, including water monitoring, environmental baseline data collection work. We've talked a little bit here about it, but just talk more about the local community and, of course, local government relations.
Our project is a huge area, and there's only really a handful, 5 or 6 farmers that live on the land there, and we have good relationship with all of them. We've got their consent. We've been working there now for nearly 20 years, so we do know them quite well. About 20 kilometers away from our project, situated is a small, pretty town of Valcheta. Valcheta is a place where all our workforce derives from, the local labor workforce that we have. And we try to treat people as best we can. We maintain equity employment there. During the time when there was a lockdown during COVID, we continued to pay everybody because we recognize that sources of revenue sometimes can be difficult, especially in Argentina, where that period was economically difficult. So we've got a good relationship with the locals there. We have maintained an open dialogue and a constant dialogue with the provincial government of Rio Negro, letting them know what we're doing. They're very aware of what we're doing and very supportive of what we're doing. A very pro mining province that's actually quite active in the nuclear space. And beyond that, within the federal government, again, we are always engaging every step of the way, every move that we make. Every program before we execute it, we ensure that everybody is, all the stakeholders here are aware of what we're doing and what comes next, just to maintain that good relationship. And this is something that we have been doing, since the 90s, when, we're managed by Grosso Group with Joe Grosso, our founder. He always believed that when you're operating in a country outside of our home base here in Canada, you always have to be on your best behavior. You are a guest. We're operating at the local residents' their consent, and we should always be at our best behavior and ensure that everybody's comfortable with what we're doing before we execute anything. And we do our best to adhere to that principle. It's served us well over the last 3 decades.
Appreciate you going through that and discussing your guys' views on this. And it certainly is important to have the alignment of local community on these projects, and more important every day as we go through some of these things, and some of the policies, politics, and NGOs that are out there as well can complicate things. And so it's always a difficult one to process through, and there is a lot of things that have to be done properly.
Yep.
Well, Niko, short of anything else you wanted to add, why don't we leave it there for now? For potential investors who are listening in, the company has a market capitalization of about 20 million Canadian dollars. Why should Blue Sky Uranium be considered within the institutional, family office, and retail investors' portfolio at this stage?
Well, this is the stage as we move towards feasibility and then towards construction and towards production. We're entering a development stage of the company. There's many institutions that are not aware at the stage that we're at. It's a new, although we've been around for a long time. This stage that the Blue Sky is at is a very new stage. This is the opportunity here as we continue to our outreach program here and we're getting and talk and engage institutional investors, which those that we do engage, we get a very positive response. I think the valuation of the company will continue to improve, and that's where the opportunity is right now.
Niko, and for further information, what is the best way for folks to reach out to the company?
Well, best way is through our website at blueskyuranium.com. Fire us an email at info@blueskyuranium.com or call us at 1-800-901-0058. You can ask for me. You can ask for our investor relations, Sean Perger. We're always very happy to engage with investor inquiries and answer any of your questions that you might have.
Niko, thanks for the time and update on Blue Sky. Good luck on continued progress, and we're looking forward to an update in the future.
My pleasure, Andrew.